guys? It is Adam, a.k.a. Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. We've got a lot to go over, so let's get right into it. North Korea is close to developing ICBMs that can hit U.S. with nuclear weapon, or at least this is what South Korea says. Now, remember, South Korea wants to say pretty much anything for them to be defended as well, but again, this is the South Korea's Lee. This is not the previous gentleman that was in his spot before. North Korea is the last stage of developing an intercontinental ballistic missile that could hit the United States with a nuclear weapon, though it is yet to master re-entry technology. Again, that was the South Korea's president said on Thursday. Remember, this is the new president, not the last one, which if you have followed this story, I believe this new one was a puppet. It may even be a Chinese puppet. Again, that's just my opinion. President Lee Jae-myung, who is visiting New York for the United Nations General Assembly, hosted an investor relations sessions on Thursday at the New York Stock Exchange. He pledged to reduce security risks linked to North Korea in order to draw more investments and spur the economy. Quote, whether for negotiations with the U.S. for their own regime, they are continuing to develop intercontinental ballistic missiles capable of reaching the United States and bombing the United States. So this is something where, you have, obviously, he's saying, hey, you guys should be scared. They're about to have the ability to strike you, like they actually would, though, right? But the scary part about this is North Korea isn't just by themselves the crazy one in the corner that is saying we're going to go after the USA. They are a puppet of China, in my opinion, and they are actually potentially teaming up with Russia and all of these other countries. So that is where this comes in and it gets a little freaky. Now, before we move on, I want to remind you guys, make sure to go check out Energy while there's still any left. Once this batch of Energy solar generators are gone, we do not know when they will come back. Again, it was a year that we could not end up getting these, and that was because of their massive SBIR Phase 1 and Phase 2 contract with the U.S. Army. This is the same generator that the Army is getting. Again, it's reinforced with steel. It's got steel clips that just unclick very, very fast. You can go from 5 batteries to 1 battery, take it with you to work, power your tools, or power your devices at home during a storm. Again, it doesn't have to be the end of the world to have a solar generator. You can get power, unlimited power from the sun, or you can charge it from the wall while we still have power. Again, this is one of the best. It is front-loaded in the U.S., which is not something you can say for many of those Amazon generators. This is not only a giant step up, this is a massive step up from any of those. Again, reinforced steel frame and a built-in fan for extreme hot temperatures and a built-in heater for extreme cold temperatures. That is something that most do not have. Go to marfuglenews.com/energy, INERGY, and make sure to use the code Marfoogle. All right, let's bring in my co-internet brother, Dex James. What is going on and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So let's go over the Europeans and what they just privately told Russia.
Yeah, so in Russia, in the Kremlin, apparently the diplomats from Britain, from France, and from Germany have met behind closed doors with their respective counterparts there in Russia. European diplomats warned the Kremlin this week that NATO is ready to respond to further violations of airspace with full force, including by shooting down Russian planes. So they claim it to be a tense meeting. They talked about and they addressed the incursions of the 3 MiG-31 fighter jets over Estonia, according to officials who spoke about it. And the talks took place obviously behind closed doors. And following the conversation, they concluded that the violation had been a deliberate tactic ordered by Russian commanders. Although Russian officials have denied their planes crossed into Estonia airspace, insisted they are not trying to test NATO. They said the separate incident when the drones crossed into Poland was a result of an error. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov this week said Russian military flights are guided by international rules. So apparently, not only do we have the talking heads like NATO leaders, Poland's prime minister, our president, and others, and the UK and others all saying, well, we're going to, you should strike the planes down, or you should, we're going to strike them, or whatever. You now have the diplomats of these 3 nations going in directly into the Kremlin and telling them point blank, it's going to happen.
Yeah, and so this could go many of different ways. You know, with Russia saying that they didn't actually do this, that, you know, they're saying, hey, well, show us proof. Of course, there is the point that they've been jamming radars and things like this, so maybe they don't have proof because Russia actually jammed the radar before doing this on purpose. The thing is that Russia has a history of lying, and even with, you know, giving the benefit of the doubt and knowing that U.S. media lies a lot, they did certain things during the beginning of Ukraine, which were guaranteed lies at the very beginning, right? There was the ones that CNN and every Fox News went with, but there was ones that we actually followed over time, and they did get proven to be lying on this, right? Because people at first were thinking, you know, hey, Russia's not the bad guy here. Russia, you know, is doing the same thing we would do if we had Russia on our doorstep in Canada and in Mexico. We would, you know, push it back and say, we don't want this, which is essentially what they have with NATO on all of their borders. You know, with U.S. and Western forces right there, with missile technology and everything else that could threaten their country. But at the same time, they have said certain things, and then a month later, you realize that they did do this, and they lied about it. So with this being said, is it NATO trying to make these fake incursions to try to get this war started? It very well could be, or utilize any little thing they can to basically say, hey, this is a threat, we need to go after them, or we need to take these down. Or is it Russia lying and they are testing the waters in NATO borders and doing this? And then we, of course, have a Russian officials actually issue a nuclear threat to Trump's America. That's, again, how they're putting it. It says that Dmitry Medvedev, a high-ranking Kremlin official and former president of Russia, issued a nuclear threat to the U.S. following comments by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky about targeting Russian infrastructure with American-supplied weaponry. Again, we'll talk about some more of the weaponry that they're asking for right now, including Tomahawks, but we'll talk about that later in the regular show. But the response, again, was Dmitry Medvedev essentially says, what the freak needs to know is that Russia can use weapons a bomb shelter won't protect against. Americans should also keep this in mind. And I also kind of thought about, Dex, you know what I thought about is their Poseidon and their torpedoes that could cause a freaking, you know, tsunami. Their tsunami bombs. I thought about that too. That would be something that they couldn't prevent. I know Ukraine wouldn't be as worried about that, or maybe they would.
Oh, yeah, they could. There's water there. But yeah, look, you know, the beginning of the quote too, he said the Kiev drug addict, as he calls, Zelensky, said the Kremlin should know where the bomb shelters are so its occupants can hide when he uses long-range American weapons. And then he goes on to the rest of the quote that you read. But I thought it was kind of interesting that he calls him out as an addict.
Yeah, which I'm sure that, you know, most people have seen the clips and have their own questions there. You can be the judge on that. But as far as this goes, they're kind of putting us in this as well. Is this, along with the other stories, is this a overall narrative to get people scared? I don't know. But one thing I do know is all of the rest of the things that are going on right now are absolutely crazy. We're going to talk about over on Marfoogle TV, the BS excuse they're giving us. Again, it is turning out that it was not supposed to get out right away, instantly, with all of the generals being called back. Some of those generals called journalists, is from what I'm hearing, and told them about this, meeting on Tuesday. Now they're saying it is exactly what CNN said it was within the first few minutes, that they thought it was. Well, possibly it's about this. We'll talk about that here in a minute. If you're in the chat, just stay here. If you're watching the replay, please join us over on that one, because all of the generals are being called home to Virginia on Tuesday. We're going to talk about what they are saying the official narrative is on that and what we think it is. We'll be back over on Marfoogle TV, our sister channel, in just a moment. If you're watching the replay, all you have to do is click here. We'll see you in just a minute. Be safe, be prepared, and Marf out.
Everybody have a good day. Bum, baby, bum, bum, baby.